Well, I'm 36 weeks pregnant, and this week we are going to be diving into what's happening in our life, a real life recap, plus a little announcement about what I'll be doing with the podcast when baby arrives. And also I'm going to be talking a little bit about why we are going to be homeschooling. So come and join me today and let's dig in. Hi, I'm Brenda and you're listening to the Little Kingdom Warriors podcast, where we help our kids discover God through play. Are you overwhelmed by the weight of your never-ending list of things to do, but desperately want to invest in your kids' faith life? Are you tired of the same old colouring sheets and seemingly lifeless Bible stories that you're even struggling to sound enthusiastic about? Well, I'm here to help. I'm a lover of all things creative, an ex-primary school teacher turned stay-at-home mum and follower of Jesus. Let's walk this path together and transform our kids' lives with new and exciting ways to explore the Bible and help them become God's little kingdom warriors. We might not have it all together, but with God, and maybe a strong coffee or two, we've got this. Hi everyone, and welcome to Little Kingdom Warriors. I'm your host, Brenda Cortis. Today I'm going to be mixing it up a little bit, and I'm going to be doing a real life recap. I thought it was time that I sort of went into a little bit about what's been happening in our life and gave you a bit of a life update. So at the moment I am 36 weeks pregnant today. Definitely feeling like I am keen to meet this baby. Certainly the excitement in our house has been building. Lily's been asking all the time when the baby is going to be here and is it coming out now? Is it coming out soon? So we are all things baby at the moment. I've been nesting like crazy. Today I cleaned out the kids' closet, rearranged it, and we've been just organising lots of things to do with the baby. The other thing that has been going on in my life is I have felt that God has really told me that I need to rest and to pause. And let me tell you that is pretty hard when it feels like there's so much to do. But I felt like he definitely sort of said that with the podcast, that I need to take a bit of a mental brain break to allow time for other things. So prioritising getting ready for our baby coming, because that's a really important event. And I just wanted to go through and share with you how I've been making an effort to rest more, and also what the fruits of listening to, I suppose, God's voice in all of that, and what the results have been from choosing to rest a bit more. So I have been taking the time in the middle of the day to actually lie down, and often I fall asleep, and that's quite unusual for me. I only really have felt like this pregnancy I've really needed that nap in the middle of the day. So thankfully I'm actually able to do that, because Hugh is still having a midday sleep, and usually I can find something to occupy Lily with for a while so that I can have a little nap. I have noticed, so I've been trying to, I'm generally a night owl. I often end up staying up late. And that's kind of, I've ended up always regretting it in the morning, because particularly with kids, they get up before I'm really ready to get up if I've gone to bed late. And often I'll get stuck into something like, I don't know, a sewing project or a show that I'm busy watching. And then when it comes to the morning, I feel like I'm just short-tempered with the kids, and I can't really be patient and have enough time for them. So I have genuinely noticed that there's been a shift in my temperament from choosing to go to bed earlier, and it seems so silly. It's like, well, of course, why didn't I realise that before? So not staying up late and choosing to go to bed earlier and allow myself a bit of time to rest has really helped just with my emotions, I think, and keeping them in check a bit better. The other thing that I have found has been really good with making an intentional pause is that it has allowed me to think a bit about who and what matters to me the most. So trying to make the most out of those moments rather than overbooking myself and overbooking my diary and being too busy in this season. I've certainly found in this pregnancy particularly that my body is telling me when it's just been too much. Like the Braxton Hicks tightenings that I've been getting have just been insane, and the achiness in my feet. So I was told I have an irritable uterus. That sounds like a fun thing to have, but I've definitely found that if I'm not resting, my body is going to let me know. The other thing that's been going on is a set of semi-overwhelming circumstances. So it's not really been one thing. It's been an accumulation of small little things that have all built up a bit, and I have really had to learn in this particular season to try to trust God despite the overwhelm of our circumstances, and to trust He's going to provide for us and that everything's going to fall into place. So just to give you a brief overview of what's been happening, I can't remember if I mentioned this before, but earlier, maybe about a month ago, we went to visit my sister. So I went with the two kids by myself, and we went to go and visit her because she's just had a baby. So we were pretty close in pregnancy with the gestation. So we went down there to visit, and on our return, I discovered that the fridge and the freezer had gone off. So we've actually got two fridges. One's a drinks fridge just with cold water and stuff in it, and then the split fridge freezer and the chest freezer had all gone off. And so I came back, pregnant, tired. It was the evening by this stage, and having to unload by myself. Kids overtired, and then I find the fridge has actually been off for a few days. Couldn't work out why. Anyway, long story short, we are having to lodge an insurance claim because the floor underneath is all soft and everything, and it's caused all the tiles to crack, and we think that something had been leaking at the back of the fridge and that this has tripped out the power. So anyway, it's all been a bit overwhelming because that's been going on in the background. We sort of also needed to on-sell our car to try and alleviate some pressures, and Lily has been testing boundaries, so she's been choosing to be disobedient. And then also it's just the practicalities of something that's been occupying my mind a lot is just worrying about where Danny's going to be when I go into labour because he works away. So just all of these things, and the verse that God has been trying to instill in my heart is Matthew 6:34. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. The big thing that I've really been trying to do in this season is just take one day at a time. I'm trying to just actively concern myself and only choose to think about the present moment and tackle one hurdle at a time. And if I don't, I find that it just becomes all too much and too overwhelming. The other thing that's been going on in our life is we have just started attending a lovely homeschool cooperative. So in our region, they've just started up this great little homeschool co-op, and a number of people have got together and organised different workshops for different ages. And every week there's different workshops that are on, like horse care, macrame. For my kids, because they're so little, we're just involved in the preschool, so they've got different themes they're running each week. Anyway, that leads me on to why we have chosen to homeschool, because I thought it might be useful just to share a little bit about our choices for why we did decide to homeschool, because it wasn't a decision that has been taken on lightly at all. It's been something that we have kind of ummed and ahed about, and we went back and forth about if we should homeschool or not. And thankfully, my husband and I are finally on the same page with it. So the reasons we are choosing to homeschool, so a big reason is we're planning on moving out to my in-laws' cattle property at the end of the year to continue the business with the stud cattle. But that's just a small part of it. So one of the reasons I would really like to homeschool is because I feel like there's such a huge portion of each day that kids spend at school. So typically, they're there for 5 to 6 hours a day. And that's a massive chunk of your day that is spent investing, that teachers are supposed as spending, investing in your kid's life. And if it's values that you don't necessarily agree with, that's where I think that you can have big issues. I feel like school is not just about education. I feel like it's also about character development. And Danny said something quite profound, which he probably won't remember, but I wrote it down because I really liked the way he said it. He said, you can be the smartest person in the world and you can have the best education, but if you're going to hell, what does it matter? And I feel like that sort of summarizes some of the reasons that we're homeschooling. What's the point of going to a great private school if at the end of the day you don't follow God? So I really want to make sure that as parents we are instilling the right kind of values in our kids, and not just values. We want to see them in personal relationships with Jesus. Something that's been concerning both Danny and I is the secular mindset and the political agendas that have filtered down into the classroom, and I've seen it, I suppose, for myself too, when I was working in the schools, and it's even worse now. Kids are being exposed to all sorts of unbiblical and secular gender ideologies, and young kids too. I suppose sometimes parents might be unaware of how young some kids are when they're already exposed to these things, and I feel like they are taught and exposed to them way too early, and these sort of political ideologies are becoming mandated across the board. And, I feel like it's a sexualized, warped agenda, and I don't really want my kids being exposed to that. So I have made an active choice, we have made an active choice as parents that we don't want our kids exposed to that. And I feel like homeschooling is one of the ways that we can shield them for a time, and then when we are ready, we can talk to them from a biblical foundation viewpoint about what is going on in the world. In Proverbs 22:6 it says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old he will not depart from it." I think the flip side of that is that if you don't train up a child in the way he should go, then when he is old he won't depart from that either. So how are we training up our kids? And maybe for you don't have it impressed on your heart to homeschool, but what are you intentionally doing to invest in your kids' faith walk? What are you doing to create intentional moments with them? I'm going to be real. Some aspects of homeschooling terrify me, the trying to juggle different curriculums, the age level as well, because I was predominantly sort of teaching 10, 11-year-olds, and going down to the little ones. I've never really spent a huge amount of time teaching such little ones. So I suppose in a way it's great that we have decided early that we're going to homeschool, because it's not going to be too complicated to begin with, and I'm sure I can pick it up what Lily particularly needs to learn to begin with. So I suppose I'm grateful in a way that the decision to homeschool has not been a fast sort of hasty decision and I've had to jump in the deep end with it all. It'll be a slow thing that we can get our heads around before we have to implement something properly. So lastly, I just wanted to talk about what I'm going to be doing with the podcast when the baby arrives. So I've mentioned before I was hoping to have a few podcast episodes ready to roll. That has not happened as of yet. I do have some things lined up which I will hopefully get recorded and done before baby arrives. But in the case that I don't get it all recorded, you may notice that there are no episodes dropping maybe for a couple of weeks, maybe for a month. And I'll just keep you updated via email about what's happening and when I'm going to be back dropping episodes every week or every fortnight. The other thing I wanted to mention actually was I did an interview with a lovely Christian mum from New Zealand called Deb from Mama's Mission, and it is actually quite a good listen. I mean, once you get past the awkwardness I had because it was my first interview, we talked a lot about discovering God through play and discipling kids and some of my thoughts around that. So that was published fairly recently, and I will link it for you in the show notes, and I'll post it also in my Facebook group so you can have a listen to that. So that's another thing you go and listen to if you are missing my podcast episodes, which I hope you will if I'm not dropping episodes weekly. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to me rambling on this week, and I would just encourage you to hop on over to the Facebook group and join other Christian parents there and keep up to date with what's happening. Thanks so much for tuning in this week, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye. Hey friends, if this podcast encouraged you or made an impact on you in some way, I would be so grateful if you could take a minute to leave a review to help other people find my show. Don't forget to click subscribe so you are the first to know when a new episode airs. Hop on over and join my free Little Kingdom Warriors Facebook community, which I will link for you in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening, and God bless. I'll see you next time.